Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the Get Geek podcast. My name is Walt, and I'm joined here by
Wolfie.
What's up, people? So today on this episode, we're going to be geeking out over a movie that Wolfie put me on that I had no idea about. I mean, I'm almost ashamed as a Star Wars fan.
As a fan or as a fanboy?
As a fanboy, yes. So what are we reviewing again?
Awesome segue, Fanboys.
There you go. So
yeah, no.
go for it.
No,
Let people know what Fanboys is all about.
So Fanboys is a kind of like a movie that flew really under the radar, I feel like, for a lot of fanboys, actually, because most people that I know that are also quote-unquote fanboys of Star Wars,
Me being one of them.
or just fanboys in general, have never heard of this movie. And I only happen to have heard of this movie because of I accidentally saw it. I was living in Austin, Texas, and I went to the Alamo Draft House to go catch a movie. Tickets were sold out by the time I got there, and just happened to switch it up and pick something else to watch, and it happened to be Fanboys. So Fanboys was released in 2009. It's a PG-13 movie. It's an hour and 30 minutes long, and the synopsis is that it's basically, Star Wars fanatics take a cross-country trip to George Lucas's Skywalker Ranch so their dying friend can see a screening of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, before its release. It's directed by Kyle Newman, writers Ernest Cline did the screenplay, as well as Adam F. Goldberg, and it stars Dan Fogler, Jay Baruchel, Kristen Bell, and a few other cameos that I do not want to list.
Oh my gosh.
But you do not want to miss.
Oh my gosh.
The cameos in this movie is what makes the movie. Now, I want to make sure that you guys understand, I do not, before we go into the spoilers, if you are a true fanboy, and Walt might get upset right now about this, but if you are a true fanboy, you're going to want to skip this portion of the podcast, or just pause it, go watch the movie right now, and then come back before we spoil anything. So big, red lights blaring, spoiler alert right here, because every single little thing about the movie, including the cast list and the whole nine, is crucial to the experience as a fanboy. I don't even want you to go out there and watch the trailer. Yeah. Before we saw the movie, I made sure that Walt did not watch any of the trailers, because the little glimpses of the film really can spoil the enjoyment of it.
And that's really difficult for me because I'm a trailer.
Yeah, you're
the word.
I mean,
I could use a word, but I don't know if it's appropriate for this podcast.
A trailer hound.
There you go. Thank you. I think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
A trailer
the
hound.
other word starts with the H and O and all that, I think.
Exactly.
But this is a family podcast.
Yes.
That being said, it's while it is a PG-13 movie, there is some very adult language. So please be warned if you're going to watch it with kids.
Watch them with adultish kids.
Yeah, watch with kids that understand, that they're, understand the responsibility of certain language and kind of new norms. I mean, this movie is 10 years old, and just a decade ago is a completely different era than we're in right now. So,
and I do hate to say it, but it does kind of show its age, even though it's 10 years ago.
It does.
It's not. It is not the most well polished movie,
right?
But damn, if it's funny,
it's so
you
funny.
Know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. It really looks like somebody took a camcorder and recorded it. It wasn't. It's like I said. The production values isn't ridiculously high.
Well, I mean, we gotta consider
it's like an indie film, right?
It's I guess, but it's more this is kind of the style of comedy films 10
True.
years ago.
True.
I think that comedy films completely changed as far as scope goes. I think when Superbad came out. Because after Superbad came out, there was a big change in how they were filmed and what content was put out there and what was funny. I think it turned into kind of after Superbad, smart yet stupid at the same time became funny, and smart production and things like that became a thing.
Judge Apatow style of movie.
Exactly.
Yeah,
the area of Judge Apatow is there's before Judge and then after, and this is before. So,
Yes. But it had that Judd Apatow feel to it,
well,
right?
it did because
A lot of the people that are okay, we'll
all
stop
right.
here.
There's definitely some cameos that are related to
Yes.
that whole world.
There
So,
it touches upon that
yeah,
world.
this might have actually been like the beta test for that. I feel
That's
like
a good idea.
you know,
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
a
like
good
this
way of
movie's the
putting it.
beta test for the Judd Apatow like
Absolutely.
films and stuff. So,
Oh my gosh.
well, let me ask you. So just one thing that I want that I want everybody listening to understand is that like you don't necessarily want to go off of the reviews because Rotten Tomatoes has it currently at 22% fresh.
Yeah.
But it's a skewed number simply because, just like the titles implied, this really is a movie for the fanboys.
And I feel that this is a perfect movie for Get Geek to review because this is
Yes.
exactly the type of stuff that we're talking about. Because you look at this film and the Roger Eberts of the world and the New York Times and the LA Times and the Hollywood, well, maybe the Hollywood Reporter, but this is really, you got to have some inside baseball knowledge to this kind of stuff. You
I
know
mean,
what I'm saying?
more
to
than that,
enjoy this.
You
know?
have to be on the team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
You
got
gotta
to
be
a
real
fanboy.
sweaty,
You
you
know,
know?
you got to be a real fanboy. I think that, like, I mean, you can get by, you can enjoy the movie. For sure, you can enjoy the movie if, I think that you can enjoy the movie not being a fanboy, but just kind
You'll
of
miss like 90%
understanding.
of the stuff,
Yeah, you will miss like 90% of the stuff. I mean, there was stuff that picked up now. We just finished watching it basically right before recording this, and there was some stuff like just now that we picked up that that I didn't see like the few times that I saw it beforehand. That was just amazing. It's so classic. And it's
Are you referencing the Boba Fett stuff? Uncomfortable silence.
Why do you have to do this? I don't understand where this animosity towards Boba Fett came from.
I like
the
me some Boba
greatest
Fett.
bounty hunter in the galaxy.
We're going to be talking about another bounty hunter much later, but
God. Anyway.
yes, so
So anyway, like going off of those reviews, forgetting that, let's say Rotten Tomatoes doesn't exist and so on and so forth. What can you give me your little mini review and your score?
Oh, we're going scores now. Straight up. Okay. So this is a movie that I had no idea even existed, and listen, I had to look up some of the history, and apparently this thing was held back for at least a good 3 years.
Right. You said that.
There's two different versions of this movie that are completely cut and ready to roll, and I think that's part of the reason why it took that long to release.
I guess I'm not 100% sure. I haven't done the research on that, but again, like I had no idea about the movie either until I saw it. You know, I saw it by accident.
So
So
I can see where somebody who is not a Star Wars or
yes.
in that genre would look at this film and say, well, what's funny about this? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly.
So, but a Star Wars sweaty will look at this movie and say, my gosh, where has this been all my life? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. I mean, how many
Because
times did we bust out laughing?
it was every 5 seconds there was a different little reference here. It kept on going and going, and you know they were not ashamed to throw out whatever was out there. I mean, there were certain things where it's like, you know, you probably shouldn't be using that in that particular situation,
Right.
But you're still putting it out there anyway.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
I happen to love the film, and like I said, and you know, again, you look at the film, and it's not the highest quality film. It's not production-wise. It's not. But you know what? Who cares? Because you could tell that the actors were having fun.
Yeah,
I mean, that came across very easily.
Like, I was actually going to tell you this. I didn't mention it, but I was like, you know what? They must have had the most fun filming this.
Oh, my gosh.
This movie. So much fun.
And apparently Lucas gave them almost unfettered access.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
He gave him unfettered access. There was a couple things, apparently, that he said, do not touch on this. Maybe some touchy subjects for him. But considering that, you know, it's a movie about Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and the whole nine. And you know, the backlash from all the critics in the world,
Right.
Star Wars fans being the biggest critics of them all. The backlash that he faced off of that, it's actually kind of cool to see George Lucas not be like sour about it. He's like, yeah, sure, no problem. Go ahead and I know you're gonna poke fun here and there and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and even the director mentioned that he was kind of afraid even
Yeah,
approaching
yeah.
Lucas and
That's
stuff,
true.
right? No holiday special,
No holiday special.
no Boba Fett Burger King cup.
Right, right.
I mean, there was little things here and there
I'm
that.
gonna look up that cup actually. I wanna.
Yeah, I'm curious because
Yeah.
I don't remember that either. You know.
Yeah, there may be a reason why we don't remember it.
So yeah, I mean, you look at how they. So it's basically a road trip movie.
Yeah, it's a road trip movie,
Right.
which is great. I didn't realize road trip movies could be this much fun.
And it's funny because, and you and I were talking about this before the podcast also, it's a little ironic that we're reviewing this. First of all, it's the 10-year anniversary for this movie.
Right.
But secondly, it kind of hits home because there was a similar situation where,
Correct.
So should we go into kind of like the story's about?
Yeah.
A little bit more.
Spoilers. You guys have been
Okay.
warned. Let's
Spoiler.
go ahead right into the story now.
So, the movie is about a group of friends that have been friends forever and stuff, and they just happen to be super Star Wars nerds. And so, one of their lifelong dreams, I think they said it ever since they were in first grade, right,
Yeah.
was to break into the Skywalker Ranch. And so, one of the characters, the one that's played by Sam Huntington, he's the one guy of the group that's kind of moved on, and he's got a real job.
Yeah, he
and,
became an adult.
yeah, adult in quotes and stuff like that. And everybody else of the three friends, and there's Kristen Bell is part of that group also. She's also one of the adults in the room. But
Sort of, but she's an adult.
But she's still a
nerd.
fanboy.
She's still
Yes.
a fanboy.
Fangirl.
She's a fangirl.
Yes.
Sorry.
The other three are full-on nerds, and they still haven't grown up.
Oh my God, yeah.
And the other one's
But do
living.
you really want to?
Exactly. The other one's living in the carriage house, right?
It's a garage.
Garage. His mom's garage, but he calls it the carriage house.
man.
So they're geeking out over Star Wars, and then there's news that one of their friends has cancer.
And the thing is that he will, in all likelihood, not live to see Phantom Menace.
Right.
Which is huge, only for the simple fact that just yesterday a report came out that Disney has granted this exact same wish to an alien father and his son. So the father, I think Walt's pulling up the article now.
Yes,
But
here
the
it is.
father is there was a plea on Twitter, I believe, to Disney executives to allow the father to see the rise of Skywalker. Sorry, to see the rise of Skywalker with his son, early, ahead of time, just because that in all likelihood he may not make it. And it's just it's unbelievably, like, it's just weird that it's the 10th anniversary of the movie, that I happened to just bring up this movie just this past week.
Yeah, it was
You know?
yesterday, wasn't it?
No, it was a couple days ago, but still, like, it was like, hey man, you should check out this movie. If you've never heard of it, you have to see it. Like, it's weird how the universe works. You know what I mean? But it's amazing to hear that that Disney has done that.
Yeah, I think
And-
one of the Disney bosses actually stepped in.
Yeah, Robert Iger is the one that responded to the appeal from a Hampshire-based hospice trying to secure a viewing of the latest Star Wars film for the fan and his son, which is, it's unbelievable. And it's one of those things that, I think Disney gets the bad rap right now, from myself as well, as being the Empire and the dark side and this, that, and the other, with their conglomerate company grabs and so on and so forth. But this is one of those things that, good on them. I'm sure that they looked at it more like possibly as a publicity stunt. I don't know, but
I think it's just goodwill for them to do it.
It is just goodwill. It's such a great story. It's awesome that happened. So anyway, going back to the film Fanboys, that's basically where we're at. You know, these friends, they want to do this for their friend as like his dying wish, and man, like through the entire process, we get so many amazing cameos. Now, let me ask you, what was your favorite cameo?
Oh, I think you know what that is.
I don't know. There was so many.
There is only one. There is only one.
Well, he did kind of have half a scene.
Oh, okay.
Talk us through that cameo.
All right, so the cameo that we're talking about, of course, if you're a fan of this podcast, you know that I am a huge Darth Maul, whatever you want to call him, fanboy. He's my guy in the Star Wars universe. So of course, these kids don't go the traditional route of a sick fan trying to watch.
Oh yeah,
they
didn't do it. They didn't go on Twitter. They never didn't go on Twitter.
Well, Twitter didn't even exist back then. I mean, one cameo that really blew my mind was the Palm Pilot.
Right.
Oh my
I'm
gosh,
looking at those. Like,
oh my gosh.
Monochrome too.
Oh, it's horrible. So they chose not to take that traditional route. They chose to break into Skywalker Ranch and
steal a copy of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Using grappling hooks and Millennium Falcon Chevy vans.
and Captain Kirk's help.
Oh, my gosh. See, I was going to say that was my favorite. I'll talk about my favorite cameo in a little bit.
Okay, so my favorite cameo was, of course, Darth Maul. He was a security guard in the Skywalker Ranch chasing the kids, I guess, if that's what you want to call them and stuff. And they were all wearing these Watchmen type,
like the mirror, the mirror guy, the mirror guy, right?
Yeah. And of course, you had the reveal of Darth Maul, Ray Park, as a security guard,
right?
And I think that's where I lost it, right?
Yeah.
Did I fall off the couch? I came close. I know.
You definitely came close. I was like, I was also preparing you for it too. I was like, no, wait, sit, watch this, and I knew it was coming. And I knew you were gonna flip out. And so he did his thing too. He pulled out two collapsible batons and started swirling them around. He did a 360 flip.
Then that's it.
Like I said, half a scene.
There was gold to be mined there.
It's a cameo.
It should not be a cameo. It should be more than that. You know what I'm saying?
Don't worry. At least your guy is still alive in the universe.
No, not anymore.
No?
No, not anymore.
Oh, why? Because they killed off the Han Solo?
No, well, not even that. I mean, yeah, I guess technically he is, but remember, Han Solo goes back a number of years. In Rebels, he had his final confrontation on Tatooine with Obi-Wan.
Oh.
So he got himself deaded. Deaded. You know what I'm saying? Right. So he's no longer. He got himself perished. He's no longer with us. So cool, you may still have a chance.
I still have hope.
Yeah, you still might have a chance. Although.
So I want to talk a little bit more about the other cameos now. Before I get into my favorite cameo, some of the notable mentions were Seth Rogen.
And Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen has two characters on the screen at the same time, which was amazing.
That was a meta moment if you ever saw one.
Dude. Oh God. Seth Rogen first appears on the screen playing a Captain Trekkie, basically.
And he was almost unrecognizable.
A little bit, yeah, because he had the hair. This is again, if the movie came out 10 years ago and it was being held for 3, this is a 13-year-old film for Seth Rogen. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
skinny.
This is. I mean, he just looked different, and he played king of the Trekkie nerds, which we all know.
The Admiral, right?
You know what? I'm not. This is a geek podcast for all, so I'm not gonna, talk crap about some of our Star Trek fans out there.
I happen to like Star Trek, though. I'm a fan of Star Trek.
I'm a fan of the Abrams.
Really?
Yeah.
I like. Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of Wrath of Khan. I mean,
Wrath of Khan. I liked it. But at the same time, it's one of those things that it's just, I don't know, it's just you do I think that I can enjoy Star Trek, but I feel like I can't love it the way that I love Star Wars,
right?
Because when you go into the lore of Trek, it's a bit bland for me.
But it's a
You know what I
different
mean?
animal because Star Wars is this big, loud space opera. Star Trek is
That
a
has a
little
lot
bit
of cool factor.
right.
Let's just
Star
remember that
Trek is
Star Wars has the cool factor.
right. Star Trek
Just
is a
saying.
little bit more nuanced. You know,
Right, yeah.
the main character, he doesn't go in guns blazing. He wants to
Well, I mean, if he's
outmaneuver.
Captain Kirk, yeah.
Yeah, he wants to outmaneuver. He wants to outsmart you. That's his goal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I understand. It's
He's
again. I
very
know that like the Trekkers out there, because
Yeah.
Trekkie's derogatory apparently.
well trekkers.
The
Yeah,
Trekkers, the Trekkers out there, yeah, they're like the chess player versus Star Wars
Exactly.
being the checkers. I can see that, but you know, have a lot more fun as a Star Wars guy. But
know.
anyway, you know, his cameo was awesome. Billy D. Williams' cameo was great.
what was his name? Judge Reinhold.
You're right. Yes, exactly.
And even the guy mentioned it. He was like, "Don't make fun of his name,"
Yeah. Carrie Fisher.
which was a little bit sad.
It was sad because
When I
she
saw
played.
her,
Yeah.
when I saw her there, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Carrie!" And my heart dropped a
Yeah,
little bit.
it drops
you know what
because
I'm saying?
she's in the film playing a doctor, and she's being like very wholesome and caring for
Right.
what's his name actually? I forgot.
The main character. The guy that
The guy
cancer
that's
patient.
the cancer
I
patient.
forgot
I
his
his name
name.
too.
Yeah.
But he she does like they have like a little moment where he's trying to escape the hospital and she gives him pills because she knows that she can't stop him.
Right.
And actually, I think there was even a scene where like they told her like, please, you gotta let us go. Like you're our only hope, right? Which is awesome. And
And what he goes and he tells her, "I love you,"
and she
what does she
says,
say?
I know. And,
Again, that's a sweaty
yeah,
moment.
exactly.
that-
And not only that, but also the if you think about it even a little bit deeper, I don't know if this was intentional, but in my mind, if you remember earlier in the film, like when they were arguing about like why they kissed and stuff like that, and he says that like, oh, like they're about to die, like it's just a
he
kiss
came up
for
with
like
so
good
many
luck and this and
things.
the other. In this scene, he's running off. He's about to die, and she gives him hope, and he gives her a kiss, plants a
Yeah.
kiss on her before they leave. And I thought that was a beautiful little scene. In retrospect, it's one that like I guess I appreciate way more now because of her passing
Right.
than I did 10 years ago.
The character's name, by the way, that has the cancer is Linus.
Right, Linus.
You know.
But for me, going back to you Trekker fans out there, my biggest and favorite cameo
That was
reveal
awesome.
was William Shatner's scene. Because here they are, they have to get like basically they're trekking across the pun intended. Pun not intended. But the crew is trekking across the country and they need to like find ways to like get into Skywalker Ranch, and they somehow come across these
It's a
some
convention.
guy. Some guy that's gonna give them all the
Oh,
plans
yes,
and the entries, all the key cards to like get into Skywalker Ranch and this, that, and the other. And they're told you got to go to Las Vegas. You got to, get to the convention center and just say you're here to see Scruffy Nerf Herder. So they go, they give the keyword, they
Harry
get brought into a
knows.
darkish room, and this is another piece of the movie that I really like, were the sound effects, because they used
They
used
so great.
the Star Trek warping sound effect. And next thing you know, in the dark, you don't see Shatner's face. You just see his silhouette. And he just throws a folder with a bunch of stuff. And you can hear the classic Shatner voice, telling him, there you go. It's all there, And, of course, they're trying. They can sense who it is. And they're like, wait a minute. It couldn't be. And then he steps into the light.
Yeah.
And you just see Shatner. And then they spend time like, how did you get these files? And they're like,
I'm Shatner.
I'm Shatner. I can get anything. And it's so awesome to me because I do love William Shatner later in life after his like kind of career as Kirk.
Right.
Because of who he is and like the Orbitz commercials and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
he's larger than life at this point.
Yeah, at this point he's obviously a legend. But it's just as awesome to me as a fanboy that the keys to the Skywalker Ranch go through Captain Kirk. You know, I think that that's like an awesome like little fanboy tidbit for us Star Wars fans and the Trekker fans. You know, it's like, yeah, like you guys might be cool, but you still have to go through us to get there. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those little things that like it's really awesome. You know.
And there's that point when they finally do get into the Skywalker Ranch, and they get caught. And so, and so the guy that was interrogating
Danny
him,
McBride.
Danny
Danny McBride is in there. Another cameo, which, by the way, also Craig Robinson is in there. Like, it's, again, this is where we said that, like, you know, it's maybe like the beta to Judd Apatow's.
There's so many people.
Yeah,
in
so
this
many
movie.
of his like
so many
people
recognizable people. Too,
I wonder if he was like a producer or something, some sort of advisor.
Check
We gotta look that up.
But he mentions Shatner also.
Yeah, do you remember the scene?
Yeah, I remember because at that point, he's got them all in the room. The people that are trying to that have broken into the Skywalker Ranch. He's the head of security, and George Lucas gives him a call.
Right.
And so the kids are going crazy. The guys are going crazy, and he was like, "Shut up! I got to talk to him." And he's just going and breaking down. How did you guys get in here? Grappling hook. And so he's telling George Lucas, and then he goes and he asks the guys. He was like, "Did you get this from Shatner?"
Yeah. No. So George Lucas was like, they asked him like, was William Shatner involved? And they were like, no. So they covered for him, which is cool, you know.
Yep. He's like, no, Shatner wasn't involved. Shatner wasn't involved.
You know, so it's like a little something extra, which is awesome. And again, Lucas being an advisor, he was an advisor to this film.
Yes, he was.
You know, I think that like that was probably something that maybe he even added like a little bit, you know. I thought that was kind of cool. And I also like how the interaction on the phone call with Danny McBride, I just realized that I wonder if Lucas was doing Jedi mind tricks, because the way that he says, like, I've been told that I no longer believe this anymore. I've been told that everything that I believed is now a lie.
Yep. And that was a running gag with one of the characters. He was always trying to use Jedi mind tricks on people.
Exactly. You know? Oh, man. So,
and tell me, how cool was their van?
Oh, their van. It makes me go want. I've been kind of like looking into van culture and custom vans and stuff like that, but like they have the coolest van. It looks like the A-Team van, but with like on one side it's the Rebel Alliance logo. It's a black van with the red Rebel Alliance logo, and then on the other side you have the classic.
It's
A New Hope. It's the New Hope movie poster with
Luke and Leia,
Luke holding the lightsaber, Leia at his leg. You know, it's that classic poster, and it's just so awesome. And that van has R2-D2 on the hood. Great. It has he operates it just like the Millennium Falcon. Like it has car trouble, so he hits the roof, and then all the lights turn back on. It has so many little nuances that you can only appreciate if you're a Star Wars fan.
Yep. And I'm curious to see what that thing is written in Arabic on the driver's side. We need to find out.
Yeah, that's true.
There has to be something with that.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I don't think that they would put that there.
They did not skim on like the nerd stuff for sure.
So there was another scene involving the van with the cops, which was great.
Oh my God! Yes. Oh.
I mean, listen. If you love Star Wars, you've got to watch this film. I mean, so they start out in Ohio, right?
Yeah, they start in Ohio,
right? And so, what ends up happening is that one of the friends, the character played by Sam Huntington, his name is Eric. He decides, he finds out that Linus has cancer.
Right.
They've been withholding it from him,
right?
And so he's like, okay, we have to do this. This is our Death Star. This is our moment.
Yes.
I'm saying? And so they go on this cross-country trip. There's a point where they stop in where is that again?
Well, no, they got a flat tire.
They had a flat.
You're talking about like
when they first met Seth Rogen's character. They detoured.
Oh yeah, they detoured to Iowa. Because they knew that there was going to be a Trek meetup, and that was like the first time that we see Seth Rogen.
Yes, which is great because they get into it and stuff.
Yes,
you know? That was a funny scene. And then they keep going, and they end up getting caught by the cops.
Yeah, they were speeding, and obviously cops come along. But then there's a scene in the movie where like they come into possession of like some drugs, and so like from the flat tire. So then like before they, he was gonna pull over until Linus says, "We can't pull over. I have a bag of peyote." And so now they're running away from the cops, and this is where the character of the movie's Millennium Falcon comes into play, because that van is very much a character, in my opinion.
Oh,
you know
absolutely.
What I mean?
And remember, beforehand, he had said Hutch. Hutch is the owner of the van.
Yes,
which
yes.
is played by Dan
and
Fogler.
the main comic relief, I
Yes.
believe.
And he specifically says when all those guys get into the van, do not touch the red button.
He specifically says a lot of things about the van.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but he said, do not touch the red button. No. It's one of the rules, rule number 2.
Yes.
So they're running away from the cops. He's like, break rule number 2. They hit the red button, and just like in the Millennium Falcon, it doesn't work. So they're switching all the buttons, they're resetting, they're rebooting, just like that scene in Oh my God, it's so good.
It even had the sound effects.
Exactly, and that's the thing.
Effects
it had the sound effects of the Millennium Falcon and of the R2-D2 when they screech away.
Yes.
It
finally kicks in.
Yeah, it finally kicks in. Nitro hits them.
You actually see the light trails from the stars out of their windshield.
You hear the whirring from like the R2-D2.
Yes.
Like, it's just, oh my God. And they crash into a
what was that billboard?
It was a billboard of it was something like, it was like a cop thing, or like, don't speed or you might get arrested.
Exactly.
Something like that. They crash into it, and when they crash into it, it breaks off into a perfect Darth Vader, and they obviously crash. And then when the camera pans to face the billboard, you see the 2 red lights that form Darth Vader's eyes, and you hear the Darth Vader breathing.
It's great.
Oh my God,
it's just great.
It's little things like that that make that film so amazing, so great for the fanboys. So, now getting to the end, Linus finally gets to watch the movie. He doesn't say anything to the guys about the movie. He has a very touching scene with Eric, and then it kind of breaks away to 6 months later, essentially, or however long it was, to the release of Phantom Menace. And we see them kind of waking up, and they come out of a tent, and just like every real fanboy, they were camping out to watch episode 1.
Right.
Most of them in cosplay, like a true fanboy. But the one person that we don't see is Linus. So now we're told that he's passed. He's no longer there, and they're there to enjoy Phantom Menace. And it was a really awesome scene, because you can see that like everybody's kind of together. Even Eric's older brother, which he kind of has like a bit of a tiff with, they have like some sort of disconnect, and he says, like
the wars.
Well, Eric is like, oh, I can't believe you're here. He's like, of course, man, it's the wars. So like everybody's a fanboy at heart. Like if you're a fanboy, you're a fanboy no matter what.
Right.
And the famous line at the end of the film, which is like they're all excited to see it, and then the film ends with Eric looking over to the guys and saying, wait, what if the movie sucks? And then it cuts the credits. Which is a nice, funny way to kind of like to poke a little fun to Phantom Menace, and like the debacle essentially from the critical fallout after episode 1 came out and all that stuff. But it's one of those films that, like, again, like it's so like heartwarming because of the story and all that stuff. It makes me like Phantom Menace even more.
Right. So. I do want to mention one thing that I noticed, and it's interesting, especially in the climate that we're in. They frequently had arguments about specific things regarding Star Wars. And it's interesting to see that back then we didn't have the toxicity that we have now. Back then you could have an argument with your friend, and like the argument was about Leia and Luke, right?
Leia and Luke kissing, whether if it was a romantic kiss or if it was benign.
It was a fun little argument that they were having, Yeah. I don't know if you can have those arguments nowadays.
They didn't really have the internet back then. That's why.
I guess that's what it is, because
it's easy to be very inflammatory when you have the internet.
You're not.
You can be behind the keyboard and all that stuff. And that's something that sucks. I mean, I personally try to stay away from, there's a sidebar, but I try to stay away from like comments and stuff like that on social media in anything that I watch, that I see. If it's like, one of our posts, or some of the other social media sites posts, I'll read the post. I'll read kind of like the caption, but I'll usually stay away from the comments because it doesn't matter what the post is. These days, it doesn't matter. You go into the comments, you're going to see negative stuff.
Yeah, it's
It's
unfortunate.
because it's so easy to be negative online, and it's unfortunate. But you're right. It's a good thing to point out. Like back then, like you know
You can have you can have a discussion. Like you and I have discussions like that all the time.
about Boba Fett apparently.
Yeah, well, I like to poke fun at you with Boba Fett. You know what I'm saying? Such an easy mark. But
Oh my God, Boba Fett is not an easy mark. He's the hardest mark. He's Boba Fett.
yeah, because he's dead. But
Oh
anyway.
my God.
But see, that's the type of thing we can have that
Yeah, we
back
can
and
do
forth
that.
and
We
stuff.
can,
and
we can
we
do
know
that.
it's
I don't know
just-
for how much longer, but we can do that.
But like I said, it was refreshing to see that because these guys, you can tell that in the movie they're really sweaty about Star Wars.
Yeah.
And you can still have those type of conversations, and then afterwards you're still friends afterwards. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
It's not oh well, screw you, this and that, and the whole 9 yards. So that was one of the things that I found interesting about that movie. Yeah, I mean, so one other thing I wanted to mention, that last scene when they were waiting to get into Star Wars,
yeah.
it brought me back to
Yes,
1999 because I was in a similar line like that. Now, I didn't camp out, but I did wait online for like about 2 hours or so to
Right.
get in. and
Yes. I mean,
stuff.
because that's kind of how it was back in the day before
Yeah,
you
there
had
was
reserved
no-
seating and stuff like that. There
exactly.
was like maybe one thing. Actually, not even. I think when the Matrix Revolutions came out, they started doing reserved seating, and it was like I remember there was only 8 seats at an IMAX theater.
gosh.
Only 8 seats that you could reserve.
Yeah, you had to wait
Yeah,
online.
You had to wait online,
And you had to be first online if you wanted to get the
The
primo
goods-
seats.
oh my
You
God,
know what I'm
dude.
saying?
it would be a rush. As soon as they let you in, people would be running.
Exactly.
And you know what? I kind of miss those days.
Well, I'm a little more bougie now. I like
I'm
the
I'm
fact.
nostalgic about some of that stuff. Like I personally miss like, not having a cell phone. And it's funny because when I was in high school, I was like dying to have a cell phone. I did everything that I could to have a cell phone. But like now, I kind of wish
Did you have the beeper?
I did have a beeper. I had a StarTAC.
Everybody had a
Everybody
StarTAC.
had a
you know what I'm
StarTAC.
saying?
Yeah, but I also got my butt whooped by my mom when she found out I had a StarTAC.
Oh, okay.
Because I did not tell her I had a StarTAC, and I was much too young to be having a cell phone. I had nobody to call, and I had like a $500 phone.
Well, you just say, hey, listen, just in case there's an emergency, right? That's what you needed a StarTAC for.
You want to know what she says? Like, here's a quarter. Go to the payphone.
It's true. It's true.
So yeah, I mean, so again, like, I still want to get your score review on the movie for our fans out there.
So I'm gonna go 8 out of 10.
Okay.
And like I said, I rarely give a movie a perfect score.
Right.
And I just bring it down a little bit just because of the production values. But I'm really nitpicking at this point. You know what I'm saying? There was, like I said, watching that movie brought back so many memories of 1999 and the whole Phantom
the
Menace
nostalgia,
craze. I remember seeing the trailer for the first time, and it was the fog, and then all of a sudden you see the Gungans come out and stuff. I remember that so vividly, and I remember waiting online. We all brought lightsabers to the place. We were fighting amongst. There was people cosplaying. See, at that time I wasn't into cosplay. I'm still not, but my little one is. So I cosplay through him.
Right.
But I mean, lightsabers. We waited online just wailing at each other with the plastic lightsabers that you got from Toys R Us and stuff. You know what I'm saying? So that to me, it was just one of those things where it's like, not only did I enjoy the film, but it also brought back memories for me, and that to me is what a film should really do for you. You know what I'm saying?
It should evoke emotion.
Exactly, and it did. So I can't. And it's Star Wars.
Yeah, this is a Star Wars film
With Ray Park in it.
This is a Star Wars film. In my opinion, this is that, like,
It's canon.
It's canon. I feel like this is like, one of those films that if you're a Star Wars fan, you actually have to watch it. From a pure like film standpoint, I agree with you. I'll do like an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
But I struggle with that number because I think that it's an absolute 100% must see if you're a Star Wars fan.
Absolutely, yeah.
So generally, I think it's an 8 out of 10 if you're a diehard
But
Star
it's a
Wars
must
fan.
watch.
If you're a diehard Star Wars fan, I think it's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
You know, you'll if you're a real Star Wars fan, then I think that you will absolutely agree that it's a 10 out of 10. You just have to. I don't see how you.
And they
could
threw
not.
some Indiana Jones stuff in there
Yeah,
too.
it's just. I mean, 'cause it's still George Lucas. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's. You know, if you're a fanboy of Star Wars and you're a fanboy of George Lucas, you're a fan of his other stuff too. I mean, you know, I liked actually that scene where like Jay Baruchel was saying how like Harrison Ford is the greatest actor of all time because he played Han Solo, Indiana Jones, and the
other guy
Blade
said,
Runner.
"Oh, Deckard from Blade Runner."
Deckard from Blade Runner
Yeah.
too, and it's like, yeah, I mean, wow, like he's played some serious freaking characters.
In sci-fi, he is like
he's
one
the
of
man.
the top dogs.
Yeah,
you know.
he's the man. Yep.
So-
Yep.
All right, then. So that is Fanboys. If you're a Star Wars fan, go out and watch it. If you're not a Star Wars fan, find a Star Wars fan and go out and watch
Yes,
it. You know?
absolutely, guys.
So we're going to transition now from Star Wars just for a little bit because while me and Wolfie were talking about Fanboys, our two other hosts were fanboying about something else. They were actually watching a different show. Guys, first of all, why don't you introduce yourself to our fans?
This is AJ. Greetings.
What's poppin' puddin'? Elias here.
So
I see
that
what
should
you
give
did
you,
there.
yeah, that should give you a little hint about what they were watching. But if that didn't trigger it, I'm going to let you know what they were watching. Today, on Friday, DC Universe debuted their first episode of Harley Quinn. So, both me and Wolfie saw it previous to the podcast recording, and then the kids watched it right afterwards. I think it took Wolfie a little bit by surprise when I put it on, you know?
So my quick take was that, like, within the first 10, 15 seconds, my jaw literally dropped off of my face, and I started pacing around because I was so confused because of the jarring effect of seeing a Batman the Animated Series style show starring Harley Quinn and the rest of the cast dropping F-bombs left and right. Like, after 15 seconds.
I'm pretty sure everybody saw your reaction.
I mean,
except
like,
me.
I just honestly,
yeah.
well, except AJ. AJ wasn't here, but, like, it was just one of those things I was like, I did not totally expect that at all. So, with that, I do kind of want to hear AJ and Elias's take. So, let's go around the table real quick. AJ, why don't you give us your quick little review, your thoughts on it, your impressions, and then we'll go to Elias.
All right, so if you are of age, you should definitely watch this. You should know about this because this is a really bonkers show that just one of the things that I wouldn't say took me aback, but Jim Gordon is so different, but it's not bad.
It's like
actually good.
Jim Gordon, the alcoholic, right?
No, he's a
totally-
coffee maniac.
He's stressed out.
caffeinated.
He's so stressed out.
He
that
is
he's
way out
turned.
there.
He might have to go to Arkham Asylum.
No lie.
I'm not just the president. I'm a client.
Yeah, and just the whole the way I really love the part where Poison Ivy is talking to Harley Quinn, and she pulls up this used to be you. You were the person that got me through Arkham. You consoled me as a as a psychiatrist, and then she starts having a conversation with the picture.
It's so weird.
With herself.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's so
Elias,
great.
what do you think?
Oh, definitely not for kids. Definitely. Well, depending. Actually, I felt that it was a really good.
Definitely not
show.
for kids coming from a
Da-
kid.
Yes.
Oh.
Not a kid, a tween, as they put it in the Good Boys. A tween. Okay? So,
Just a quick disclaimer. I think Walt can agree that like Elias is a little bit more mature than he lets on and stuff
Yes,
like
he
that.
is.
So he thankfully has been raised with the right kind of mindset when watching things like this. So if you have a child that you think can handle this, just make sure that they are mature and they understand what they're watching.
Yes.
That being said, continue,
Continue.
please.
yes. So, I felt that it was very, very, funny in the sadistic almost
I don't realize sadism
Way?
can be funny.
yes, but it has a dark humor, definitely very gory, and I can tell you that the amount of curses is how much. I want to hear this from everybody and like
In
an
an
estimate.
alternate universe where mics were or were not turned off,
Yes,
where maybe above like 20 f-bombs.
20 f-bombs.
I would say at least that.
Maybe
like,
more.
What was jarring was not how many f-bombs, but how some of those f-bombs were used.
Yes.
Especially when she's
Yes.
describing what Batman
Oh,
has
Batman.
certain experiences with.
Batman has relations.
Yes. Oh my god.
With a
yeah,
certain-
It's very, very creative how they use their f-bombs. Let me just say that. So.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I felt it was really good. It didn't most of the episode wasn't based off action. I wouldn't say like
There was
maybe
a
like a
decent amount
quarter.
of action.
There were
Decent amount of
decent,
action.
but like it wasn't mostly focused on or mainly focused on the action, more
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
like the problem.
Well, that's the other thing too. That I think that like this episode, like it kind of throws you into, like how the show's gonna be. It's a lot of comedy. There's a lot of comedy, which
Yes.
is awesome. But there's real character development in this one episode. We saw Harley Quinn go from like the typical, her typical old self, Joker's pudding, to the Harley Quinn that we know now in Margot Robbie's take in Suicide Squad. And I think that's what the whole purpose of the show is.
Yeah,
So-
I think there's with all the comedy taken aside from that, there is a deeper message there. It deals with the toxicity of relationships and stuff like that. That's stuff that happens in the real world. And so they have comedy lying on top of it, but if you really strip that away, there's actually a really deep message in there on how difficult it is for people to get away from these type of relationships,
Right. Yeah.
But it's
yeah,
freaking funny.
It's real funny, but actually, you're right about that. It touches on something that's a real serious subject about people that are involved in abusive relationships that they don't see it, and
Well-
it's really hard to kind of convince them and
Right.
For
try to get out of
example-
it and stuff like that. So
Yeah, for example, they even stated in the actual show when they're talking about the picture.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about some.
She actually diagnoses herself, right?
Yeah, there's this girl who can't get I guess she fell in love with like some killer, and she even as much as he treats her like badly, she still can't get away from him. I guess.
Yep. So, she's basically self-diagnosing, and she has that aha moment where it's like, oh, yeah, she should be diagnosed with so-and-so, so-and-so. Oh, wait, you're talking about me. Oh, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
And even with that, she still couldn't pull away.
Right.
It
Yeah.
had to be that big...
she had to actually be shown without
Acid.
spoiling it. Yeah, with a vat of acid. So, which was a crazy scene, and it was a nice, in my opinion, it was a
Yes.
really nice throwback to Batman Forever. So you guys, I think everybody will see what I'm talking about there. AJ
What?
doesn't.
What?
Wait, Batman Forever?
The
Which
one
one
with-
was that?
The
One
one with
with
Jim
Nightwing.
Carrey and
I don't remember seeing that
the
one.
Jim Carrey Riddler. Oh man.
Tommy Lee
I've-
Jones as Two-Face.
Like, I've heard of it, but I just don't remember the movie.
I've
Ooh,
heard of it too.
okay. Well,
That it wasn't terrible.
I really like Jim Carrey's portrayal
I
of the
think
Riddler.
Jim Carrey is amazing as the Riddler.
Yeah.
I think that he would be amazing as the Joker.
Tommy Lee Jones, not so much.
Right, I understand that.
He was kind of phoning that role in,
Yes,
from what I've heard.
but
And
yeah,
stuff.
Jim Carrey was that's
Yeah,
I
he was
that's,
awesome.
That's honestly one of Jim Carrey's best roles ever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
The movie,
any scene with Jim Carrey in that movie was great.
Yes.
That's my thing. My takeaway from the movie is that everything about Jim Carrey was amazing in that movie. That's another little mini review we just put in. Anyway, so that's our little mini review, I think, of Harley Quinn, the first episode. Before we get into the next thing, the main topic of the episode, which is the Mandalorian, Chapter 4, Sanctuary. Want to bring this one in, Walt?
sure, why not? This past Friday saw the release of the next chapter in The Mandalorian, the Datalorian. I don't know. It's chapter 4, and it's called Sanctuary. So I'm going to read the description off of the IMDb database, and it's pretty simple. Are you ready? The Mandalorian teams up with an ex-soldier to protect a village from raiders. That's it. I told you it was going to be
Yeah.
short.
It's
What's your personal synopsis of it? Give us a little bit more.
So, just to my summary is what you're looking for.
Yeah. Let's
Okay.
give us like an actual summary so that, and then we'll review it from there.
He escapes Zavala 7, right? That's where they were. Oh no, he escapes from that planet where the guild was. After he rescues the child, and they find sanctuary in a planet Sorgon. If I remember, that's the planet's name.
Yes.
And he made mention that the reason that we're going to Sorgon was because there was no ports, there was no residential areas. It was basically a planet with nothing. There was life, there are people on the planet, but it's about as far away from civilization as you can get. And, he takes Baby Yoda, the child, there. He meets up with Cara Dune, which is played by, what's her name again? Gina Carano.
Gina Carano.
I'm sorry. And they form a bond, a relationship, and then they help a village out from raiders, just like IMDb said. And certain things happen afterwards. So that's basically the summary of the episode. What did you guys think of the episode? How do you think it flowed with the other past 3 episodes?
Personally, I think that like it didn't necessarily. I don't want to say that it didn't flow, but it definitely kind of changed the pace a little bit because the last 3 episodes were very like suspense and action heavy. Whereas this one brought us even, and you can kind of tell even with like the soundtrack that was used and the setting and all that stuff. It kind of slowed everything down, gave us a little bit more daylight, you could say. I think.
Yes.
Gave us a more relaxed look at.
There was some hope involved
There
in
was
this
some
episode.
hope involved in this episode.
know.
Yes. But that being said, I felt like there was a little bit of a larger disconnect than there should have been. I think
agree.
that it didn't segue right. You know what I mean?
And you made mention that this is problematic because of the way shows are run, where you have different directors.
Right.
This particular episode was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, who
Which nothing to take away, nothing against her and stuff like that. But it every director has like their vision, they have like their mark and stuff like that when they
Right.
put into to the work that they're doing, and it's easy to not connect well with like other directors' visions and stuff like that if you have a completely different approach. Now I don't disagree with like getting a different director for every episode as long as the same vision is being being held, like the same feel. Like I felt like this episode didn't feel like the other three.
It didn't even feel like the same Mandalorian that we've been
It
watching.
didn't feel like the same Mandalorian because some of the decisions that he made in this episode, I didn't necessarily agree with from the character that we've already
established.
You know what I mean? Like it's one of those, like, you know, real simple kind of example is just like the helmet and the rest of his armor, like all his weapons are his, right? In one scene, Cara Dune, Gina Carano's character, asks for his gun, and he just gives it away.
Right.
Whereas in Star Wars lore, as far as legends and canon go, I know that it's not canon, but generally in Star Wars lore, a Mandalorian doesn't give his weapon to nobody, even another Mandalorian. It's his weapon. He doesn't relinquish it for nothing.
Well, just even within this series itself, episode 1, when he's meeting up with the Jawas.
Exactly, yeah. He's like, no, this is my weapon. It's part of my religion. I can't relinquish my weapon. Yet in this episode, he freely gives it to her to run off. Who knows what she'll do with it? But it's just it's not supposed to happen, you know. And it's kind of one of those things that kind of takes away a little bit of the authenticity.
Well,
you know,
I see this episode as a total win, and the reason I say this is I might not be correct. But
just an
usually,
opinion. It's all good.
Yeah, it's just an opinion. But like usually, when you have something slow down, that would necessarily mean that something worse is coming. In my opinion, and
you're right about that. My issue isn't with like slowing the pace down. My issue is with
the character itself.
The direction of this particular episode.
And the thing with the weapon, what I think of that as much as I don't like it necessarily, but it kind of shows how the people around him have kind of affected him. I mean, like the child and
maybe I could see that. I could
Not
see
even
that.
Sorry, I don't want to cut you guys off,
No,
but
it's all good. It's a conversation.
even look at the circumstances they were in. Like, and then you also factor in that he's not a true Mandalorian, so to speak.
And that
which was revealed in this episode also.
Yes, which we discussed the last episode.
Exactly.
On our podcast.
Yeah, so circumstances plus that, I think it's not the best thing to happen, but it's foreseeable.
No. You want to know why? Because that is not the way.
Oh.
He's taken on the mantle of the Mandalorians, and he's been explained this is the way. So if this is the way, it's the way. That's it. You gotta like follow the way, you know. And that goes to the actual reveal of him not being a true born Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
so I have some theories about that because I'm almost to the point where this particular sect of Mandalorians may not be a reflection of what Mandalore and Mandalorian culture is. And so, and I'm gonna don't freak out, because
I'm not freaking out.
Because
I'm not freaking out.
This is
I'm not freaking out.
No, because but listen, because we have in canon, we already have Mandalorians established in the Star Wars universe, and it goes back to the animated space with Clone Wars and Rebels, right? We have the Wrens, we have the Vizslas, we have Satine and you know that the Death Watch and stuff like that. In that culture, right, they take off their helmets freely, right? Sabine, for most of Rebels, she has her helmet off, you know, and so that's canon. Now, with this particular group, and it feels like this group is an outsider group,
more like a cult,
more like a tribe, because even then there was a point in the episode where the two guys that come to enlist his help to protect the village, he says, well, I've heard of you guys. I've heard of your tribe, right? I wonder if this particular tribe has enacted certain rules within their group.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, the thing is that, like, again, if we go to, like, Legends, the Mandos were, at one point, like, there were many factions of the Mandos that were very splintered. Based on like almost like
It's like
certain aspects of religion today. Like certain Mandos are like, well, we need to follow the Mandalore, rules to a T, including never ever revealing our face. And maybe others didn't. They were a little bit more lenient and stuff like that. So I do believe that like there could be some truth to that, but at the same time, I don't know how much they're connecting the animated space.
Oh, they are.
100%.
Because and we had an instance of that when he walked into the bar. Did you notice the cat-like animal that snarled? That's a Loth cat. Those cats are found in Lothal, which is the home planet of one of the main characters in Rebels.
Okay.
Ezra Bridger. So they are connecting. And again, Dave Filoni, who is the guy that ran all of the animated stuff, he's bringing in all these little bits and pieces of lore. So they're connecting all of that stuff.
All right. Well,
so that's why I find it interesting that this particular group will never take off their helmets. And I wonder if maybe it has something to do with the Purge. I'm not sure. They haven't explained it fully yet. But within the same canon, in the animated Rebel show and in the animated Clone Wars, that was never a thing. Now, they had an insane connection to the armor, and that armor is passed on generation after generation. Like I mentioned this once before, but Sabine Wren's armor in that show is 500 years old. That's not her original armor. It's been passed on. So, but again, they don't make that a point of emphasis where you always have to keep the helmet on. So that's why I'm almost thinking that this is like a renegade offshoot of
I mean, it can be,
Mandalorians.
but I don't see that being the case. And the reason for that, before I let Edgy go, the reason for that is because, I mean, and I'm talking purely from a pragmatic point of view. I don't see why they would choose to introduce the Mandalorians to the general masses in this way from the Disney standpoint, by introducing a renegade faction of the Mandalorians.
Unless they go in and there's a bigger story to be told with that.
I mean, possibly, but this is still going to be the central focus. This is this is the flagship Mandalorian story. You know,
I find it hard that Filoni would discount all of his work.
Gentlemen, AJ.
Yeah, AJ's dying to say something because he's
I don't want to fan the flames even more, so I won't.
I just have a quick question.
No,
I'll listen. I'll give you the flamethrower.
You know what? Yeah, fan the flame.
flames.
Fan the flame. You trying to fan this flame? I'm trying to go ahead. Say something. Say something.
Because I like how in all of our talk about Mandalorians and true Mandalorian culture, the Fets weren't never mentioned. I'm sorry. It was just something
All
that
I'm
went
saying,
through my mind.
all I'm saying is that if this Mandalorian is accepted as a Mandalorian and he's not a true Mandalore, you can no longer use that as an argument for Boba Fett not be considered a Mandalorian.
But here's the thing. He was initiated. They weren't.
Ooh, straight burn.
What do you mean they weren't initiated? Boba Fett was Mandalore.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was.
wasn't.
Boba Fett was
That's
Boba
such
Fett
a lie.
crowned Mandalore. Was he not the leader of the Mandalorians?
Not in the current canon.
Not in current canon. Forget
Not in
about current, because in
canon.
current canon he doesn't exist. But we're all real fans of Star Wars. Okay?
But if we're talking about what we're watching now, we have to talk in terms of
We don't
canon.
know what they're doing with Boba Fett yet in the current terms. Okay? So don't give me that.
The dead man. Well, but you know
Anyway,
what? So
Don't let me go off on a Boba Fett rant.
yeah, but the thing about it is that this kid was rescued by the Mandalorians.
Yes, he was a foundling.
Right. So there may be different there may be a different take when it comes to bringing someone in, whereas opposed to Boba Fett, who was a clone, they wouldn't have accepted him, right? Listen. I'm just making the argument in canon. I'm not saying anything personal about Boba
I'm not
Fett.
saying anything either.
And Jango
I'm just
Fett.
saying that just because he was born a clone doesn't make him like a clone.
A clone? What is that?
Well, the difference is that the clones aged differently and had different things. And Jango Fett specifically said, do not change anything about him.
Right.
Make him a regular human.
Clone.
Human
clone.
not Mandalorian.
Not clone. Human clone. So, but Jango Fett.
Even then, he just stole the armor.
Yeah, and Jango Fett stole the armor. He was never embraced by Mandalorians.
He wasn't.
And
Boba
stuff.
Fett was. We're not going to have this discussion.
Yes,
We're
not.
talking about Mandalorian.
The fake
Okay.
Mandalorian, apparently.
We all
Excuse
know.
me, this Mandalorian's a fake Mandalorian too.
Yeah, no, that's who I was talking about.
We
We're
all
talking
know
about
who's
faux
Really
Mandalorian.
grinds my gears.
we all know who's a Mandalorian here.
Go on, Elias. Go on. What's your take on so where are we right now in the episode? I mean, like, so we have, so he's on the planet. He's trying to assimilate. He gets.
You want to talk about the bar scene, the introduction of Cara
yeah,
Dune?
let's talk about the introduction of Cara Dune.
Yeah.
So what did you think?
So Cara Dune for me, it was. I understand, and we talked about this beforehand. I understand that when Mando comes into the place, he's scoping the place out. It was just a little jarring the way that they did it. There was no subtlety involved in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was basically you're staring at Cara Dune the entire time. You know, if you feel that she's there for you, I think there'd be a little bit more subtlety, a little bit more, stealth involved. Basically, he was screaming out to the barkeep, who is that person,
I mean, this again goes to like my whole thing with like the direction of the film. Like I felt like the actual direction, kind of they dropped the ball. Like that's not how he would actually act, right?
Right, exactly.
Little things like that. Yeah.
He's a little bit more reserved, and again we go back to that first episode when he walked into the bar, right?
Yeah.
To get
That's
the
how
blue
you're
guy.
supposed to walk into the bar.
Exactly.
Not how he did it in this one.
Exactly. So there's like a disconnect on who is this guy that we saw in episode 4.
Yeah.
That's not the guy that we were seeing in the first 3 episodes. This one here is a little bit more, I don't want to say he's like deer in headlights, but he's
Yeah, it kinda
acting
is like that, yeah.
impulsively.
Yeah.
And he's acting scared almost, you know what I'm saying? Because he's looking around and he's
I wouldn't say
He
scared. I
has
would say
a-
green.
right, exactly. Okay,
But-
maybe that's the better point.
Even then, he does have a reason to be scared.
No, I get it,
He's
but
always needing to look around over his shoulder because, like,
but would you do it so obviously?
okay, well, not as obviously, but
I mean,
There-
look, he
there's
sat down.
on-
He sat down and like literally was like looked over her and pointed at her. I was like, "Who's that over there?"
Exactly.
Yeah, but Andre.
well, all right, there is that. But I guess what I'm trying to articulate here is that you do irrational things for the people you love, do you not? Sometimes you don't always think straight. But again, I can see
guess.
where you're coming from. That it's completely out of character for him to say, "Who's that over there?"
Exactly. So that was one of the problems that I had with that particular scene. Damn it, if Baby Yoda isn't the cutest thing in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
just him I could watch an entire episode of him just
Walking around,
You know?
He's
looking
just so
around.
small. He's so small, and he's like.
I was always afraid somebody was gonna step on him.
And he's like looking
know?
around, like just taking in the world. Like one of my favorite scenes of this episode is when they were traveling to the town that they're supposed to be protecting and all that. And you see Baby Yoda like looking up at the stars and just kind of
Yeah.
taking in the stars. Like
I-
it's one of those like scenes where I was like, you know what? Like it made me feel something when I saw that. So.
I got so scared at that during the end of the. I'm not gonna spoil it, but I got so scared during the end of the
I
episode.
feel like they're gonna do that a lot, and I'm gonna get so angry every time they do it.
Yeah. So right afterwards, Cara Dune leaves, and Mando follows her, and chucks the Imperial credits or whatever credits to the barkeep and says, "Watch him,"
That's
Chuck
the
him.
other thing too that I have a problem with. That like he like
He's so
He's so
protective.
protective of him that he's willing to just like, yeah, I'm gonna leave him in a bar. I have the waitress that I just met 5 seconds ago.
Exactly.
Watch him. Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't make
that's
sense.
And the waitress didn't really
Didn't-
do a good job.
Yeah,
You know.
as we see in the next scene, like the Mando goes out. He's looking for Cara Dune, and she gets the drop on him. And I would say she gets the better of him too, like
Yes.
in a very MMA-esque kind of choreographed fight scene. Which again, Gina Carano is a former MMA champion,
And Gladiator.
and a former gladiator. She does kind of get the better of him, which in my opinion is kind of uncharacteristic, but whatever. They end up kind of like simultaneously pointing a blaster at each other, and then they hear Baby Yoda sipping some bone broth, and he's just staring at them like,
Hello.
so whenever you guys are done, I'd like a refill, please. And that's kind of where the fight scene ends, right? What did you guys think of the fight scene?
Well, see, here's the thing. I actually, once they explained her character a little more, I can see why he would lose. Also taking into account the fact that he's possibly green. Because if you look at her actual background, she used to be a shock trooper.
For
yeah,
the rebellion.
That's
Oh, wait, not for the Empire?
No, this is a new class that was introduced in this particular episode. She is a rebellion shock trooper.
Oh, I thought like the Imperial shock
No,
troopers.
no, no. She worked for the rebellion, and so again, we're looking at some economics with this universe, with the fall of the Empire, and how it's rough out there for a bounty hunter, and it's rough out there for her because she was working with the New Republic, I believe, is what she said, right? And eventually she got bored of it because all she's doing was just escorting people and stuff, and she ended up becoming a mercenary because you're missing the action from the war, right? The Galactic War. So, but she was definitely rebellion,
Oh.
But again, I kind of agree with what you're saying because you know what? She does have the experience of being through the Galactic War, fighting, in those battles and stuff
Yeah,
where the Mando kind of seems a little green when it comes to stuff like this.
yeah. When you have a lot of experience, especially in like wars and fights, for a couple years, you'll definitely be pretty good at like your combat skills and technique. But something that was a little bit iffy for me was the fact that even though she's skilled, the Mandalorian, he's been raised by fighters basically all his life, and he just lost to a person who's only been doing it for not as long as him, basically.
We don't know the full extent
Yeah,
of
but
that.
You
And a person that is
And that's...
more than capable of punching Beskar steel,
Oh, my God.
and
Nuts.
not stopping.
Yeah, I
True.
found that pretty nuts, too.
well, true, but
Like, she punched him right in the helmet.
Yep.
well, true, but I feel like the Mandalorian could have put up more of a fight, especially since he's supposed to be a skilled Mandalorian. It's in the name,
But here's where I think the disconnect is. No matter what the training is, at best what he was doing, it was sparring. He
Well-
wasn't going for the kill.
he wasn't going for the kill,
But this lady, like you guys said, has been warbound. She goes in for the kill.
okay, and
I'm not saying anything against training or stuff like that, but I'm just saying there's something of a disconnect between training for it and doing it.
And I guess the fact that she caught him by surprise, the element of surprise kind of like knocked him off because like when you get surprised, you're
It's
not
disorienting.
Yeah, it's confusing. So
So now, like after, what did you guys think of like kind of
I'm gonna kill you. Let's be friends.
Yeah, what did you think of that whole like dynamic? And that like that comes in like two parts, right? Like first off, what did you guys think of like Cara Dune going from like I'm gonna kill you to now let's kind of be partners in crime? And then the second part of that is what did you guys feel about the timing and pacing of the show? Because I felt that there was a poor job done with explaining how much time is going by. For me, it felt like only a couple days went by, but by the end of the show, apparently weeks and months have gone by.
I'm
For
sorry,
real?
weeks and months.
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah, because at
There's
the
a
very
time
end, the
jump.
last scene, one of the last scenes, Kara goes like, "It's been 6 weeks," or no, it was Mando. The Mando goes like, "It's been 6 weeks. It's time that we should head out."
Damn.
Oh, wow.
It didn't feel like it's been a couple months, right?
Felt like a couple of days. if
Exactly.
anything.
So that's one of my
It
things.
did.
How did you guys feel about like the relationship, the character building, I guess, and
Well,
all that?
I think as far as the character building is concerned, them stopping when the child comes in makes sense because the whole thing behind their encounter is that she thought Mando had a fob on her, and Mando thought she had a fob for the kid. So once she sees that Mando is diverting his attention completely to the kid, I think that's kind of like, oh, well, maybe he's not here for me if he's stopping our battle to look at some kid. So I think maybe there you can loosen up a little bit at least. And that's where they have the conversation, the relationship builds. For me, that part kind of made sense.
Okay.
To completely be friendly, like I would have suspected a little more, not suspicion. Well, what's kind of like okay, so we're good now, but let's
Well,
I don't know
mean,
you, you don't know me. Let's. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it before, but I feel like it's a very weird concept. But I feel that they weren't necessarily trying to hurt each other. They just wanted to like self-defense, as in like when you see somebody sneaking up on you, the first thing you do is obviously, if they look suspicious, you're obviously gonna try and protect yourself. So basically what I'm trying to say is when you're holding somebody in a good position, that's necessarily the time that you seem that you stop fighting. And since they were both in that position, I mean, it's as I guess ironic as it seemed, because I've seen this so many times, it makes sense.
So to get back to the time shift, and I think
That.
maybe there was a way that they were trying to show without saying it, because shortly after that we get the scene where the two villagers realize that there's a Mandalorian in town, I guess, right? And they go out to try and enlist his help, and at first he says no, but then he realizes that they have shelter.
Yeah.
They're in the middle of nowhere, so he's like, okay, you know what, maybe I'll help these guys and we can kind of hide out there also. He does get Cara Dune to come back to help him, and she has the idea of training up the villagers. Well,
Right.
actually the villagers really push the hey, we'll fight, we'll do whatever,
Yeah,
and stuff.
they wanted to like after they find out. So backtracking a little bit, after they find out what they were up against,
Right.
Cara Dune and the Mando.
Those raiders called the Clatatonians.
I've actually
Clatatun.
never heard of them.
No, they're new
They're
to
new?
this. Yeah.
So, but they have an Imperial Walker.
Yeah.
When they
That
find out that they have an
was-
Imperial Walker, they're like, "Whoa."
Chill. That's not what you hired us
Yeah,
for.
they're out. So they try to explain to the crowd that like, yeah, this isn't what we signed up for, and you guys basically. I like how the Mando put it is like, all right, guys. So this is our report. You can't live here anymore. you know. So anyway, they kind of go off on that, but the villagers, they're like, no, we're gonna stay and fight, and to Mando's credit, he decides, you know what, we can train him. You know? But here's my issue with that. Are we to believe that they were able to train them in essentially what it seemed like one day?
Right, and so I think that's where I was getting at, where they were trying to show the passage of time with that training, but they did it poorly.
I think
It was a very poor way of doing it because you didn't get the sense that they were there for very long. It felt like
I
a
mean,
day.
no,
You know what I'm saying?
That's it felt like a day because it's
It
what
did.
it looked like. You know, they
Right.
had they did 3 training montages.
Mm-hmm.
The first training montage was shooting at the pans, everyone missing, right? But it was just panning in one line. You didn't see like them finish the line. Then it went to like showing them how to use essentially branches to stab their
Yes.
enemies with. And then it went back to the shooting, the second half of the line where you see
O'Mara, I think, is
O'Mara-
that
yeah,
character.
O'Mara like having perfect aim and
Way
and,
too
like,
perfect.
100% connection rate with the pan and whatnot. And then that's it. And we see no weather changing or anything
Right.
like that. We just see the next scene is the Mando telling O'Mara it's about to be nightfall, and we're gonna head out. That's it.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think that was meant to show the passage of time. I think it was done
think it was done
extremely poorly. You know,
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
terrible because it really
Yeah.
did feel to me. It felt like, wait a minute, these guys learned how to defeat their enemy in half a day,
that's some great training right there.
right? So
My only refute to that: the Ewoks had absolutely no training.
But Ewoks were guerrillas.
yeah, Ewoks already
They had
were,
that guerrilla
yeah,
warfare already.
They were
so
already warriors. We're talking about farmers that didn't even know how to hold a stick.
Widget was a
Well,
warrior.
That's true.
Like literally, one of the guys was holding the wrong end of the stick.
Yeah,
for the
exactly.
training,
I know. I saw
You know,
that.
and none of them were hitting anything on the pans with the blasters except for O'Mara, which leads to kind of some questions because she seems to know about the Mando culture. She has 100% accuracy. She's ready to fight.
Fearless.
Fearless, completely fearless. You know what I mean? I have a theory that she may have been a Mandalorian.
This is the way.
Yeah.
You know,
This is
she
the
know
way.
that's the thing. She knows the way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, without any kind of I guess mention or anything like that. And
Well-
Elias is shaking his head and everything, but
No.
but real quick before I let you, you know, my thing is that in one of the first private conversations that she had with the Mando, without any kind of provocation, she just asked, "So, when's the last time you took off your helmet?" He says, "Yesterday." She said, "No, I mean in front of someone else," as if she knew about this whole thing, you know, about like this whole like ritual thing with the helmet and so on and so forth, you know.
Well, I mean, it's not every day that you come across somebody who knows a lot about the Mandalorian culture, but there are some people who aren't necessarily blocked from, I mean, I guess, knowledge on the Mandalorians,
Right.
but
I guess it's kind of
something-
like the
something-
general knowledge
and
of
that's
the Jedi.
that's true. That's true. But that's true. Sorry to cut you off, but that's true. But how many of them are farmers with 100% accuracy rate on blasters? The only person in the entire farm that
She-
has shot guns before.
Okay, first things first. She might have been something else other than a Mandalorian. One of my reasons is that when the Mandalorian goes and says, "This is the way," she does not repeat it at all, which is something that you would necessarily do, but that
But
could
she's not a Mandalorian
that
anymore.
could also mean but still
Imagine if she's an Imperial.
it didn't seem like she
No stormtrooper has that good.
That's true.
Yeah, that's
true.
true.
She could have been a
That's
shock
true.
trooper.
Yeah.
Maybe if it was Obi-Wan
been a Death Trooper.
stormtroopers, but
So
There's some mystery with that character.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
I can
She's
see.
definitely
I can agree
suspicious.
with you that she definitely was someone else, and I
Yes.
don't think that this is the last time that we see her because they did cast like she had I think in my opinion the best performance of the show.
Well, she was
Yeah.
on She was on Westworld, so she's pretty known
Yes.
character. I
Right.
don't think you would put her in a role like that for
Right.
just one episode.
Exactly. So
you know.
but yeah, so that's my thing. She definitely did something. The reason I feel like maybe she was a Mandalorian is because she's the one explaining to him what it seems like she did. Towards the end of the film, after the big battle, which, by the way, we're going to talk about the Imperial Walker in a moment, which was an awesome scene. But at the end, after the battle and everything, she's telling him, you can you can take all this off. You can have a good life here, and you can put this away if you ever truly need it. You know,
Which is probably something she may have
that's
done
what I'm saying.
previously.
It feels like it's something she didn't like make it a suggestion as like. You can see it like in her eyes that it's something that she knows that he would have to struggle with.
And again,
You know,
another way of showing the passage of time that was done poorly, because you can tell that there was some sort of connection between the
Right,
two.
right.
You don't get that in a couple of days, right?
which also, by the way, this goes, to credit to our Mandalorian actor, who's amazing at what he does, because he created an on-screen love interest with no facial emotion. He was able
Yep.
to convey like real emotion for this widow without ever showing his face. That's amazing.
And just that scene that you referenced to before, where she reached out to take the helmet off, and there was that moment where he didn't
thought
stop
about
her.
it. Yeah, he didn't stop her. It
He
was
didn't
coming
stop
off,
her.
and then he stopped
You're
her.
right. It literally took him a while, and you could tell without even seeing his face that was something that at that moment in time he was actually considering.
He was struggling with it.
Right.
But here's my thing. Look at her face as she's doing it. She knows the struggle. And that's why I feel like maybe she was a Mandalorian. Because if she wasn't, then she would have had the reaction like Cara Dune, like...
And she would have taken it off immediately.
Well,
Yeah, well, think about Cara Dune, how she reacted. She's like, well, why can't you take that thing off again? That's how a normal person would probably act.
And she's a warrior.
Yeah.
She probably fought alongside a couple of Mandalorians
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form,
Yeah.
or at least was on the opposite side and whatnot. She would have even better knowledge of
Yeah,
that
exactly.
than just a farmer.
Yeah, exactly. And
You know?
that's why I feel like I lean more towards the idea that she may have been a past Mando.
I'd also like to argue, I kind of I was laughing, haha, at first, but I wouldn't see past the idea that maybe she was an Imperial, because if you think about it, maybe it's not as religious, but Imperial stormtroopers have a very similar culture regarding their
I mean-
armor. You almost never see them taking it off. They're always wearing their helmet.
Just look at Force Awakens.
Well,
Exactly.
That's true.
Ta-
Again, the blaster accuracy though.
Yeah, I
But-
know, but
Maybe she was
Trooper.
exceptionally skilled.
Death Trooper, that'd be awesome.
She was the exception.
Maybe.
But the thing is, especially since the Imperial lost, there are necessarily going to be some stormtroopers that are trying to lay low. Like not stormtroopers, like skilled ones, because
Yeah,
let's
they're war
look at it.
criminals now.
Yeah, you're considered a criminal. You would obviously
Yeah,
lay
no,
low,
that's true, yeah.
especially if you're in a planet that's considered as nothing.
Yeah, I mean, like she may have gone to that village the same reason that the Mando went to the
And
village. I see that too.
that article that you were showing me before, where there may be factions of Mandalorians that were tied to the Empire,
Yeah.
that
Well,
could be another
like in
reason.
Rebels.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
a callback to the. I mean, there definitely. I think there were Mandos that were tied to the Empire, but a callback to the first episode too, where he is not a fan of the Empire either.
Mhm.
So maybe he was on the Rebel Alliance side too.
Yeah. So there's a lot of questions
Yeah,
that
there's
come out of
there's
this
a lot of
episode.
tidbits that we're getting. So
Yeah. And in rebuttal to there not being specialized stormtroopers, Battlefront 2. I forget what her name is. Iden.
Oh,
Iden
Versio.
Versio.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was part of. What was the name?
Canon
of that?
2.
Yes, definitely canon.
Canon.
Actually, the compass from that video game ended up in Last Jedi. So, that's also canon. But she was part. I forgot what the name of her group was. Inferno Squad.
Yes.
Inferno.
Yes,
Yes.
Inferno Squad.
Yeah.
Listen, you have the ARC troopers from Clone Wars, who were specialized stormtroopers that were much they
Well,
were
that was
clone
in Clone
troopers, right?
Wars.
But I'm pretty sure they transitioned into either the Death Trooper,
Well, I mean,
things of that
I
nature.
mean, basically,
Not
there's precedent.
always.
I
Yeah.
do understand that there is precedent.
The rank and file stormtrooper sucks.
Obviously.
I just like the angle of her being a former Mandalorian because this is so much about
No.
the culture of Mandalorian.
I think for the
You know, I
story,
feel-
it
like, for
serves
the story,
it.
I think it would be better if she was. If she's not, I mean, it remains to be seen what her backstory is, and if we're gonna get any more backstory. But
This-
it can go either way. I would prefer her to be a Mandalorian because we know so far X amount of Mandalorians as they are in their culture. We don't know if they leave.
It's definitely not something that can be solved in one episode.
Yeah, no, of course.
Because, well, to put it in
We're halfway now, right? We're halfway
Yeah,
through
we're
the
halfway
season.
because we got 4 more. We
Really?
got 4 more episodes.
We got 4 more episodes.
Damn.
4 more of these under 40-minute episodes.
Yeah, I know. So let's get to the end. So we have a battle, right? They finally trained up these
These
warriors
farmers in one day.
Yeah, we had a couple of gripes about the battle scene
Right,
itself. We finally do get to see, so they make a plan where they're going to get these Clatutonians, I think that's what they're called, Clatunians or something like that, right? And they're going to, Mando and Cara are going to kind of
Provoke them.
so that they can get the ATST into play, right? So that does happen, and we get this whole little Jurassic World type scene where all of a sudden you have this monstrous hulking machine crashing through the forest.
Yeah,
and with the red eyes and
All
stuff.
you
it
see
looks
is the
sick.
red
It
eyes.
was, it was
Like
like
the way
a
they
custom one. It was all
styled it.
black
Well,
with red eyes.
With
It was dope.
the red eyes you would use normally because I think the reason that they do that is, especially in military, I believe they do that. It's easier to see at night when you're in that type of lighting. So, that's what I
Right.
believe I read somewhere and stuff like that. But
Red Dot-
visually it was striking.
Red Dot
Yeah,
say
it was.
Singing this
Yeah,
hulking
it really
thing, breaking and crashing through the forest, running after them and stuff. We get to the fight scene, the main battle scene, right at the village, and I know Wolfie, Gabe, you had a couple of gripes
I had a
with
couple
that.
of gripes, So here's some of the gripes that I had, right? So like you have the villagers who are hiding behind like makeshift barricades or whatever, and you see one scene where like some of the villagers they're popping their head out, and Cara Dune's like, "Get down, get down, get down." And then you go back to the Imperial Walker. Then you see another batch of the villagers where they're just standing straight up, looking directly into the spotlight beam. Right? Not told to get down. Okay, that's fine. But guess what happens to them? Nothing, because the Imperial
Exactly.
Walker that has a spotlight directly on them doesn't shoot them, and instead shoots, however, like football field
Yeah.
away behind them.
I
exactly.
think there's something to that.
Maybe
So
the gun was rusted.
here's one.
It's a blaster.
So, from what I understand of their relationship, the Clatunians are freeloaders. They have no specialties except to bash your brains out. They don't know the intricacies of mining or per se catching this shrill, the krill.
Yes.
Why would you want there to be less and less able-bodied people to get the krill that these guys are getting for you? The whole point, I think,
You're saying they're trying to intimidate them.
yes, and that's kind of why I liked the way the AT-AT thing. I saw that more as like an intimidation tactic.
I don't know
pretty-
because the episode started with them basically raiding the town and killing whoever they could get to, until the villagers, the farmers fled the town and they just took the krill.
Yeah, maybe.
Either
Or
way, they
it
took
could be
the krill.
It could be just a matter of they have this ATST and they really haven't mastered it yet.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
I think controlling and be able to like maneuver through a forest is a lot harder than pointing and shooting.
Well, all he was doing was just running over trees and stuff.
And
you
going
know?
and going back to
So,
what you said
yes.
on how it's blaster.
Maybe
could
they
be
have some
busted.
stormtrooper blood in them.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I think you're stretching here. I think this was like an
Well-
obvious mistake.
Yeah.
From the director point of view, like if you're gonna like they had the spotlight on them so that they can show their faces in the camera, But obviously they couldn't kill him off because these happen to be the main farmers that went to go get the Mando.
Yeah.
So they
Well-
wanted to start the battle somehow. This is, I think, the wrong way to start it.
Well, the blaster thing and how you said it might be busted. It's not a bad theory because remember you're trying to hide something. It's Imperial. You can't.
It
It's
could
not
be
something.
damaged also. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you look
Not exactly.
It
Looks
wasn't.
state-of-the-art.
It wasn't damaged when they were chasing the Mandos and Mando and Cara Dune,
You
and they were landing the blasters.
That's
It's
true,
just
You know,
like-
like I just think that like
yeah.
it's not in the realm of plausibility.
No,
Well,
that's
it's just
the thing.
it's just like that. The missile in COD, the illegal one.
Mhm.
What's it called?
Which one?
It like vaporizes you
the
once it
phosphorus, the white
phosphorus.
phosphorus.
Yeah,
White
the
phosphorus. It's
Willie Pete.
it's very much like that because the ATST. It's basically it's not something you can.
That's a game changer.
You're supposed to hide it. It's dangerous,
Not
especially
to them. The way
Well-
they look at it is they're going up against farmers. They're not
It's-
trying to hide anything.
it's
I mean,
dangerous.
they
It's
really-
It's dangerous from society because it's
But-
considered dangerous as in terms of it's an imperial war wager. Basically, it can destroy a lot.
I have a
Right, but-
refutation to that, though. I don't know how immersed they were in the intergalactic conflict, but I think that everyone chose to come to this planet for a reason. No, there are no ports, so who cares if someone smuggles an ATST here? And then furthermore, these people can't defend themselves? Well,
Exactly,
hell,
that's
of
what I'm
course I'm
saying.
gonna use
There's
Yeah.
still some sort of government there.
Not,
Not
Yeah.
really.
really.
It doesn't seem like it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
It's not that. The
This is a
whole
very
reason,
underdeveloped world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Which was something that the Mandalorian kind of liked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
he,
what- that's why
he
there was this-
exploited
yeah.
it for that
Yeah,
reason.
Exactly.
okay,
But-
so I
But
guess-
even then, I
I just think that we're trying to explain things that I think were very obvious directorial issues.
no, but that's where I beg to differ, though. I can kind of see that, though.
You can see them missing the
They're
people.
not trying to miss, though. It was intimidation tactics.
So then, why would they like lunge at them and like when the battle started, they went and did a person-to-person battle to try to
Because-
beat them down.
The way I saw that was that, okay, hey, they're obviously organized now. Hey, you, scope out how many of them there are. And then once they got that, okay, let's try to break it up. We got to keep these people under our thumb.
I don't know. So
We're
then they
not trying
So the
to
thing
kill
is,
all
see,
of them.
but see, here's the thing. If that would have been the intention, then they would have had to show at least something about that, not make it something where it's you can't imply that. It's not something that you can just imply. That's something that we're trying. That I think, you know, that if anybody wants to use that as the reason something like this happened with the Walker completely missing what they have their spotlight on, then they would have had to show that they have that implication. Like maybe somebody in the Imperial Walker shoot past them and send a warning or speak through the mic or something like that. You know what I mean? It didn't happen. The other things that I had with the issue with the battle scenes, again, you have these veteran warriors that have blunt and bladed objects, right? Taking on these farmers with essentially busted pitchforks or carved sticks. They're not even straight spears. They're basically curved branches with sharpened edges, and not a single one of the farmers died. Number one, I didn't see a single farmer get
That's good
killed.
training.
Right.
It's good
Amazing
training.
absolutely.
You know.
Second thing that I had, the issue that I had was again with the Mandalorian
And the
giving
bow
up his
rifle.
weapon. Yeah, it's not something that does. And I think that the reason they did that is because they wanted to show Cara Dune kind of taking charge and putting her life on the line and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think that in reality, it would have been the Mando that would have gone in there and cover me. That he would have gone in, used his blaster, forced the. She came up with the plan. He finished it. That kind of thing.
It's
you know
the
what I mean?
inconsistency of the characters in this
Exactly.
episode.
That's the
you
issue
know.
that I had, and that comes from a director's point of view. It's like, all right, in this battle, this is what I want you to do, and this is what I want you to do. with no explanation, and it's one of those things that like maybe in the moment they're like, all right, cool, yeah, let's do this, but nobody thought about like, oh, wait a minute, is he supposed to give up his weapon? You know, are they supposed to stand directly looking at the spotlight? You know, even though they're supposed to be hiding? Those are the issues that I have.
Yeah.
Why would the farmer be standing, not covered up, completely standing and staring at the spotlight when what they're supposed to be doing is hiding?
I mean, I want to. Okay, I can
Like, how
see
do you
that.
explain that?
I
if
would
it's
explain
not a
that
directorial issue.
as.
Was he in shock?
I would say maybe.
Was it one of these things where it's like literally a
Deer
deer
in
calling
headlights.
headlights that you're seeing this
I don't think
massive
so.
thing and you're
See,
like,
I don't think so.
uh,
I think it's a
Yeah.
very simple explanation that like
yeah,
How
they-
often do the farmers really see an ATST
Yeah.
in its full
And-
glory?
And going
Well,
back to
well, they've
like,
seen it at some point because they know about it.
and going back
so-
to like how
Okay, that's true.
how deserted the planet is and how there's really nothing left.
isolated.
There's nothing left to. There's nothing really to fear there. Since it's deserted, it's kind of peaceful except for like the hunger and everything, and maybe like problems like that. But like otherwise, it's peaceful. You wouldn't
Yeah,
necessarily.
no, this is definitely like absolutely like this is something that's more of a shocking thing,
Yes.
but this isn't the first time that they're been attacked by the Imperial Walker. They've been training specifically for this, and they were in cover. They just happened to not be in cover.
Yeah, but you could be trained for like 6 months and you still be scared. It's happened before. It's you.
But then how come
They
they didn't
didn't
die
make-
then?
That's it.
Yeah, no.
You know, I think that again, like I think that this is one of those things that like, you know,
It
I think it's a mistake that was made that can't be really plausibly
Explained.
You can't explain it. You can't
just
explain it away.
You know, my
You know.
thing is that like I like the decision behind that. I think is well, we want to show these farmers looking into. We want to be able to see their faces and stuff like this. Well, let's have a spotlight that's coming from the Imperial Walker at them so that they come out in the camera because it's a nighttime shot, right? But no, like it's one of those things that again, like from a director standpoint, nobody asked. Well, like, well, if the Imperial Walker can see them, why wouldn't he shoot them? Because that would have to be explained. Even if it's because they just wanted to warn them, they should have explained it. So it's some of those issues that I have with the episode where I feel like it happens, you know, more often than not. Like going back to the Mando leaving this child in a bar with a random person. Here, take care of him.
Oh yeah,
He has
that.
yet to understand who's in that bar if there's other bounty hunters because he still has to figure out like what the whole thing is. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and leave him in there, you know, and hope that no other bounty hunter just shoots him dead for the bounty. You know, little things like that. And that's why I feel like it's more of a directorial mistake than an implied decision. You know what
That's
I mean?
fair.
Simply because if you make one mistake, then all the other mistakes are easy to see.
Yeah.
So,
So eventually they do take down this ATST in spectacular fashion, right?
yeah.
That thing blows
It's
up.
deeper than it looks.
Okay, it's a little weird, but I guess it works, you know. I love how they say, well, you can't take down an ATST. The Ewoks did it, so
Yeah,
hello.
that's the
Their
one thing I
gorilla-
said throughout the episode.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, you know, Cara Dune was like, you can't take it down. It's been done before.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so let's get past this. We already got past the scene, and, you know, now the villagers are happy. Everything's hunky-dory, you know.
She's taking off the helmet.
Yeah. Baby Yoda's playing with the kids. He's found a place that he can possibly live in. And then we get that
You have a
next
scope on Baby Yoda.
Yes.
There's a little red dot side. Wait, what?
exactly. Somebody else gets the drop on Mando again. You know,
Which isn't supposed to happen.
right. And it's a bounty hunter we've seen before. I don't know. I don't remember what alien species he is, but he's the guy with the snout. You know what I'm saying? We saw him in Empire Strikes Back, didn't we?
No,
Or
that
was
would have
it-
been New
was that
Hope.
New Hope? Oh yes, because
That was
that's
the
when
spy.
when they got out of Mos Eisley, right? Really quickly. So it's that species. I don't know what that species is. So somebody's about to kill Baby Yoda, and Cara Dune comes and saves the day because she just happens to be patrolling that particular area
Right.
and shoots the guy in the back before.
Shoots a sniper in the back. Someone that was in the woods under camouflage. She happened to see him from like however far away, and like, oh, I'm gonna sneak up on this sniper and kill him. But she does, saving the day.
Yes.
And forcing Mando to collect Baby Yoda and decide, you know what, we got to go.
So I gotta ask a question: how exactly do fobs work in this series? Is it that there's a chip embedded in Yoda? Is it DNA? I'm trying to figure out.
I think it has something to do with DNA. It's got to be. You know what I mean?
Because they seem to find so. In essence, everywhere they go, they're going to encounter somebody going after them because this fob thing can find them anywhere.
Right.
You know.
I have a feeling that
So they
like
had to take it at the source.
they might have put like a tracking device on Baby Yoda because it's possible because
No, I agree. But then,
But that is kind of hard actually because like we're talking about like traveling different planets.
right, that's what I'm saying.
Like,
How in
he
the
had
world
to,
does
like,
this
he had-
work?
He had the key fob. I mean, he had the like in the first couple episodes, he had a fob, but he still had to like
Figure
find
out.
out where he was before the fob would actually work.
I'm just a little. I don't know how
I'm-
fobs work
I'm
in
not
this
talking-
universe right now.
I'm not necessarily talking about the fobs. I'm talking like actually putting a tracking device on Yoda
Well-
because
Well, then Mando should have known that, right? Okay.
there was a part back when he was rescuing Baby Yoda where he was inside some sort of lab. It's when you have a test subject, you're obviously gonna put a tracking device in it unless you're like that.
But
you know,
didn't the
but
guy
like-
say that he didn't let them touch him?
Who?
The doctor.
Dr. Pershing.
Yeah,
No.
he said they didn't let
But
him touch. They
is it-
didn't let them touch him.
It doesn't have to be the doctor.
then
It
if
could be
you-
somebody else.
But he was the one overseeing
It's-
that
it's
project
just-
specifically.
it's just an opinion.
Oh, okay.
But if there's a tracking device, then what would you need a fob for?
Here's
A fob is just necessarily. It's just to put like a bounty on somebody's head. It's basically the John Wick thing.
I can see
Like
a
a
track. I can see.
Bluetooth
I can
tracker?
see a tracking device being on the ship. You know, I mean, what's his name?
But the ship
Carl
was.
Weathers. Carl Weathers'
Yeah, yeah,
character. He was on the ship. Maybe he put a tracking device on it.
True.
You know, we don't know. There's stuff that's plausible. in
Hey,
there, but
Mando,
regardless,
what are you doing? You should know that you could possibly have a tracking device on your thing. When you check it out.
They're like kind of in this episode. I feel like they kind of took away from like Mando's badassery, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like someone that's as good as he is, that has the reputation that precedes him and makes him so expensive. You know, best bounty hunter in the region. You know, and this, that, and the other. Getting the drop on him twice, not being followed over there, things like that. Like it just doesn't seem like
And
a characteristic of him.
And they kinda-
Inconsistency.
I can see
How
that.
out of character for a man of your reputation.
We're gonna be quoting him all season, aren't
He's
we?
the freaking
He's
best.
awesome.
I hope we haven't seen the last of him.
Yep.
So anyway,
So Cara goes on her separate way, and Mando and Baby Yoda are off on more adventures.
yep, and yeah.
So
that's kinda where we're at.
I'm personally excited for episode 5 because episode 5 is going to be not only written but also directed by Dave Filoni. And so the first episode was directed by Filoni but written by Favreau. This one you get double dose of Filoni.
All the episodes have been written by Favreau, right?
So far.
Yeah, so far. I
So
believe
far.
So, yeah.
So the next two, episode 5 and episode 6, are the only ones this season that Favreau did not write.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last two he's going to write and
Direct.
so no, actually for the next 4 episodes Filoni is going to be directing episode 5. We're going back to Rick Fumiyama for episode 6. We're going back to Deborah Chow for episode 7. And episode 8, Taika Waititi's taking that one.
no,
So
Taika Waititi.
that's going to be really interesting, you know?
Yo.
So there's stuff to look forward to, and hopefully we'll get back on track. I think this episode kind of got away from the
look,
director in this
I
one.
know that I have like a lot of gripes and stuff like that. I still love the episode. I saw it twice. I'm gonna probably see it again. Thankfully, I mean, double-edged sword, right? The episodes are a little bit shorter, so it's easier to consume, but it just leaves me wanting more. I think this is one of those episodes that should have been an hour long.
Maybe because
You know,
you could have had more
could have had
more
time to, like,
exposition,
yeah,
more of a
So,
build up, more explanations and things like that.
But not, like, I think this is still like
It's not a bad
I
episode.
think it's still a great episode.
Yeah.
I just think that like compared to the first three being so phenomenal that it just it's easier to see the missteps from my point of view.
There is definitely a dip in quality and consistency with this
Right.
episode. It's still a good episode.
Yeah.
It's just not as great as the first three have been.
Right.
So, alrighty then. So I think we're gonna wrap this up. We've really talked a lot
Yeah.
about stuff today.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully you guys all enjoy the conversation that we've had.
yeah. And we'll see you guys next week. Next week, I'm not sure what we're going to be talking about, but I'm pretty sure we'll talk more Mandalorian next week.
Right.
There'll be that new episode, and I'm going to geek out about that because, like I said, Filoni is writing and directing it, so I'm expecting a super phenomenal episode. But anyway, let's wrap this up. My name is Walt.
This is Wolfie.
AJ bidding the adieu.
Supreme Boy Eli. I know it's kind of an ironic name, but it's still pretty good.
Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.